Hi everybody, the artist Zalo here. In this video, we're going to talk about how to draw the Star Wars character IG11. First, we're going to talk about some basic shapes that we use to draw that character and how to draw those shapes. So get your paper and pencil and pens ready, because here we go. In this part of the video, we're going to talk about basic shapes. In this case, basic doesn't necessarily mean simple or easy, although that's the way people use the word sometimes. Basic actually means from the beginning, as in basic training, basic math. The beginning of something is the basis, is the base that you build upon. So we have our basic shapes. I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to draw a square. I think these are shapes that most everybody's going to know. And in this case, I'm going to do a rectangle. The problem is these are flat shapes. These are two-dimensional shapes. When you want to draw something that's not looking flat, that's more like real life, like 3D or three-dimensional, we have to turn it into something else. So instead of it just being a circle, I'm going to put a little shading on it. And I'm going to pretend it's got a shadow and turn it into a sphere or a ball or an orb. Instead of a square, we want to try to make it look like a box or a cube. Now in this case, I'm going to round this out a little bit because we're going to turn our rectangle into a cylinder. In this case. Now, these are called the basic shapes because they are the basis, they are the beginning of all other shapes. Any other shape that you can think of will come from these. I can take my sphere and I can kind of stretch it out into an egg shape if I wanted to. If I took it and I cut it in half and I put that top half on top of the Capitol building, we might call that the dome. If I took my cube and I actually chop down the sides, leaving a point at the top, that might give us a pyramid. My cylinder is like a pencil or a pen that I'm using. When I get a brand new pencil, I need to be able to sharpen it to a point so that I can use it to draw. We call that a cone. So just as an example, all other shapes come from these three shapes. It's like the alphabet. If you were to say most words come from the alphabet, I'd say no, all words come from the alphabet. If it doesn't come from the alphabet, it's something, but it may not be a word. So in conclusion, we're going to be using shapes like this, and we're going to be modifying or changing them a little bit as we need to create our figure in the drawing. Now we're going to start our IG11 character. He's essentially, in my opinion, a collection of cylinders, a lot of different cylinders that have been modified and changed around a little bit. He's also got some bandoliers, and we give him a pistol and some other stuff. So we're going to start with the stuff that's kind of closest. Even his head is long and drawn out into kind of a funny shape. So he's got, let's start with this, just because that's going to be the part in front. And then he's got another one here. Change pins real quick. So they're a little different on each side, but not too bad. So I'm just going to put these in, get them kind of started. Here, now, he's got kind of a squared off top part of his body, his chest area. His shoulder is really kind of a very short cylinder. His arm is definitely a cylinder, but he's got these little squeaky joints. That connect. His head kind of drops down into the chest a little bit, like his neck is pushed down into it. Now you got to be careful. His eye stalks kind of stick out. And we're going to draw those in a minute. His other shoulder is a little bit different. It's kind of a ball shape that's been had the bottom cut out of it so his arm can go into it. He has kind of these expandable joints here for his elbow, a little bit on the wrist. Now his lower body comes down and wants to connect to the upper body. And then he's got these swivel joints that are really cylinders turned on their side for what would be a hip on a human. Kind of makes it seem like he can't turn his legs too much if you really look at it. We'll go back and draw his hand on this side. It's kind of a pincher hand, like you get in those games. He does have coverings on the top part of his leg, which are really cylinders that have been kind of scalloped out. Then inside of that, you see his normal, I'll call it normal, leg. Drops down into the lower part of the leg. I'm going to do this here too. Kind of cuts away at an angle. And then he's got the inside where his true leg is. And this comes down into here. Then his ankles are, again, cylinders. They're kind of just flexible in one direction kind of ideas. His feet are kind of funny because they look like irons. They kind of look like they wouldn't do a whole lot except kind of hold him up, which could be good too. Let's do this hand. This hand is a little bit different than the other hand. He has a thumb and he has 2 fingers plus the thumb to hold up his weapon, or in this case, a blaster. It could be other things he might be holding on to. And we might come back and add some details to that in a little bit when we get going. So I'm going to switch pens again real quick. He has all kinds of kind of eyes coming out. I call them eyes as cylinders a little bit. Kind of protruding out of the front and the back. And he's always got this sort of encased area here. Now, he's also got lines that go across, like they're separated. And then he's also got some other, I'm assuming they're sensors or some kind of device that he can use. Put a little darkness in there since we're doing black and white. Switch pens. And then he's got lots of little details. You can put in whatever details you think he should have. Sometimes he's got specific little things going on here. And after we do that, then the fun part comes. You can come back, you can add color, you could take a different pen, you could add some shading, try to make him even look more three-dimensional, as if he's made up of cylinders as opposed to being flat. Same thing here on this one. And that's our character. Once you get done with that, then I like to make it a little simple. Give it a little uneven line. It doesn't have to be straight. Kind of low and behind them, and that's going to look like the ground. After you do that, put a little shading. Make it look like he's standing somewhere, wherever that is. And then you can put some rocks, pebbles, some little texture, some details. So now it doesn't look like he's floating on your page. He's kind of standing on the page somewhere. He's someplace. He's not just suspended in space on this page. I might come in and darken a few areas. Give it a little sense of being connected. I'm going to make this gun a little heavier looking by adding some black spots, some heavy spots to it. think he has a wire that goes around and connects to something on one of his hands for some reason. I'm sure there's a reason. Okay. So I'm going to add a little bit more shading. You can add shading on any section you think it deserves. Anywhere you want to put it is fine. I'm just adding this a little bit to kind of give it a little more of a cylindrical as opposed to a flat shape looking, if I can. You can do it any way you want, and I've seen the images of him, this character. He looks like he's kind of scratched up. He's a little beat up. You could even come in and do some work on that. For example, randomly just kind of go across and do a crisscross. And go across, crisscross. A little scratchiness to it. He's gotten beat up over the years. He's fallen down. And a little texture here. Especially around the feet where it's going to run into rocks and stuff a lot. And once you're done with your work, I say this all the time to the students, what should you do? Sign it. Sign it and date it. I'm going to put the year. Hope you guys had fun. Hope you learned how to draw this character. I will see everybody soon. Be safe.